In this video I will show you how I reached the Grandmaster rank playing 6-player progressive card games with the players who only had higher rank or the same rank as me. I think currently this is the best way to find out whether you're good enough to reach the Grandmaster playing with certain settings or not. As you can see, it took me 37 online games to reach the Grandmaster rank. There were 3 additional single-player games, but you're just forced to play them in order to unlock multiplayer, so they do not count. And that one turn fastest victory came from the single-player games, so do not pay the attention to it either. This is the first game, and I'm really proud of my move I made. After trading an A set, I moved my biggest army to the territory of North Africa, so the white and blue players would be prevented from taking the green player out, who was a very easy target for sure. The yellow player still had the accessibility to it, but he was a novice ranked player, so he didn't take the green player out. He actually came up with something smarter. He tried taking the white player out for 5 cards, but actually not. He crushed the white player for a bit and just fortified his biggest army to a blocked place back. So the situation was looking very promising to me. I took the green player out, and then the blue player out. Fortunately, none of the opponents had a set at 3 cards, so I've just taken both of them out and won the game easily. And I was so lucky to find out that 2 of my opponents were experts and one of them even Grandmaster. What a good way to start your new Grandmaster run. The second game, or the first game setting the beginner rank as a minimum rank when hosting the lobby, went relatively well as well. The blue player took the green player out when she wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn. So the pink player, after getting lucky to trade in a set at 3 cards, tried to take her out. Very unsuccessfully though. So the game was given for me and I took another easy victory while actually I was supposed to lose. I've got lucky to beat a bunch of high-ranked players in this game as well. The third game seemed to be one of the most fortunate games ever as well. After trading an A set at 3 cards, I took the pink and green players out. They had 2 cards each, so I wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn. But the thing was that both of my opponents had the majority of their troops blocked, meaning that they couldn't really take me out. But the worst happened. The yellow player Haddad had a set at 3 cards, and he just crushed his army into me, and actually this wasn't even the worst. He then captured a bunch of my territories when not having enough time to take me out, so he just ended up giving a very easy victory to the orange player. But I still finished in the third, so in overall my rank was still improved by a bit. In the fourth game there was some sort of an oopsie. I traded in a set at 3 cards and I thought that I will take both the orange and yellow players out. But actually, after taking the orange player out, I realized that I won't be able to really take the yellow player out, even after getting a good blitz roll crushing the orange player's 11 troops army. So then I just combined my troops to one big army. Thank God the yellow player was taken out by the pink bot. The blue player was a computer player and the pink player was disconnected player, meaning that the only human opponent left in the game was green. Luckily he didn't have a set at 3 cards, so everything went right. Firstly, I took the pink bot out due to my army being next to him and with him having even 5 cards. Then, due to me having the territory of Iceland captured, I had to go after the blue computer player firstly over the green player, but everything went smooth. After taking the blue bot out, there couldn't be easier to finish dealing with the green player as well. And after 4 online games I was still at the beginner rank. I lost one of them, so I think that's fair enough. In the 5th game the yellow player ran out of time taking the black player out. So the game was given away to the white player, and very unfortunate to me, he decided to straightly take me out. Well, he actually messed that up, but then in the next turn he finished taking me out, this time successfully, so I ended up finishing in the 3rd place. That improved my rank, but it still wasn't enough to reach the intermediate rank. The 6th game was nothing but a disastrous bug, and you will see why. Everything seemed to go normally until I get the error which said lost connection to game. Very surprisingly, when I reconnected the timer was still at the same spot, And that's very strange considering that's an online game. And then I've got the same error again. And one more time again. And that wasn't even enough, it occurred for another time again. So what happened in this turn is the white player ended up disconnecting and leaving the game. As you can see, before that happening he was a real human opponent. Then after a few turns the pink player tried taking the blue player out, but he ended up running out of time. But he actually ended up blocking blue's Australian territories, meaning that I might not necessarily be able to take the blue player out looking to my troops distribution. But I came with a solution. After wiping out the blue player's territories from Asia, I brought both of my biggest armies next to the pink player's 11 troops army, and then with a smaller one I started manual rolling it. The first roll was successful, but the other two were terrible. But that was still enough troops to break through the pink player's army, having enough troops left for the blue player territories left as well. But with me taking the blue player out and having 6 cards, the timer wasn't reset by 30 seconds. And that wouldn't be the worst, but my traded-in 20 troops army was distributed in a bunch of smaller armies which couldn't be more useless. But then in the next turn I traded in another set and took the pink player out, and after that, the white disconnected player as well. But then the screen stuck at processing results. But after almost 1 minute of waiting the victory screen popped up. And I was very happy because I thought that I will have just to quit this game after all. But luckily I didn't have to. But then I found out that this game wasn't actually counted, my stats and rank still stayed the same, and considering I won, that was very sad that everything went for nothing. So since that game apparently didn't happen, now I'm about to show the actual 6th game. The orange player, after trading in a set, decided to take the white bot out. He managed to do it successfully, but since he ended up having fewer than 5 cards, he wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn. So then my turn came and I took the blue player out for 4 cards, and since that made 5 cards in total, I was able to trade in a set in the same turn, so then I took the orange player out himself. And then all of the rest players as well. So finally after 6 games the intermediate rank has been finally reached. In comparison with my other runs it's a bad start for the run, but not terrible. It's just so-so. I believe my best to reach the intermediate is rank R 3 games, so it's double than that. But it can be very hard to achieve that even if you win all of those 3 games in a row. It really depends on what were the ranks of your opponents. So if you get intermediate in 4 games, then that's awesome. And with reaching the intermediate rank I started to set it as a minimum rank when hosting the games. So in the 7th game the green player could have possibly tried taking out the blue and black players in a single turn. But since he didn't, the opportunity came to me. I took out black, then I took out blue, and then even white too. There weren't enough troops to take out the green player as well, but he wasn't able to take me out. So when my turn came I traded in a set and finished him off. My opponents apparently were a bunch of masters and experts, so I've got lucky to get those sweet ranking points for sure. I thought I lost the 8th game for sure, but then the pink player crushed 18 troops of the green player for not a good reason, and then the blue player finished him off. So I took her out and then attacked the pink player as much as possible. He could have taken me out, but he was very slow. He probably didn't have the camera animations off, and then he wasted a lot of time doing that unnecessary troop split in North Africa. So then in the endgame I quickly prevailed and took him out, winning the game. This time I beat 3 intermediates and 2 masters. And after 8 games I finally got out of top 100,000. In the 9th game the yellow player took the pink player out without the ability to trade in a set in the same turn, so then the blue player getting a set at 3 cards would have been able to take him out if the blue hadn't had his North American army blocked. So then the blue player tried taking the white player out at the same time, taking down my 4 troops army, but then he realized that he doesn't have enough troops to finish the white player off, so he stopped. I've got lucky to trade in a set at 3 cards as well, so I immediately went to take the yellow player out for those sweet 5 cards. and then I took the white player out, and then even the blue player for his one card, since I was dominating the game and I knew that the black player having her biggest army blocked won't be able to do me anything. So then I've not only traded in a set, but at the same time I've got a bunch of troops for holding all of those big continents. And this time I beat 1 intermediate and 3 masters. And after 9 games the expert rank has been finally reached. And I'm really happy on how well done I did in this stage, as it only took me 3 games to get from intermediate to expert. So then I started to set the expert rank as a minimum rank when hosting the games. And unfortunately the 10th game was the worst one so far, as being at 3 cards I've got taken out, finishing in the 4th place. Fortunately it didn't cost me much though, my rank only went down by around 1500. And that's the power of playing with the players who only have higher rank or the same rank as you. Then in the 11th game I saw that I have very low chances to win, so I've just started one carding. I stopped gaining any cards while being at 1 card. And that worked out. All of the other opponents were taken out before the green player got to me. And instead of finishing me off, what he decided to do is to trap me in South America. And I thought, alright, I will just let him have fun for a 1 turn. But he decided to be toxic and sent the laughing emoji, refusing to finish taking me out for another turn. So he left me with no choice but to report him for stalling. This is what you do with the players who want to torture you on purpose. I think that laughing emoji made it very clear. He then still didn't take me out, so then I just quit the game. And after 11 games my rank ended up being at 60,000. In the 12th game I've got the 2nd place once again. And it boosted my rank to 52,000. In the 12th game I've got the 2nd place once again. And it boosted my rank to 52,000. In the 13th game, the orange player got lucky to trade in a set at 3 cards, so he took out the black player for all of his 5 cards, and after him, he straightly went after me. So I ended up finishing in the 5th place, and that was kinda unfortunate. With the orange player taking black out, it was really up to orange in which order to take out the players, and unfortunately I was his first choice. I was kinda hoping that he will take the white player out firstly, but it just wasn't my lucky game. So not to end up being one of the most likable players to be taken out in the 14th game, I decided to take a little bit more of risk and take the black player out when not having 100% blitz roll chances. They were 85% blitz rolls on both of the black players' armies, and fortunately I succeeded. Being the 5th player means that even 4 players would have traded in a set before me, so I would have been very likely to be taken out. So I didn't the same situation to occur like in the last game, so I wanted to play differently this time. I still had the same choice, just to get the 4th card and hope for the best, or I could have skipped a card being at 3, so if whoever goes to take out players, I wouldn't be one of the first of his choices, so if lucky enough I might have gotten the 3rd, but maybe the 4th place would have the most likable, so it didn't really look promising either. So there was one more choice which looked the most promising, and I took it. I decided to take the black player out for his 5 cards. The blitz rolls didn't have 100% chance, but 85% chances looked still very decent. But after that there was one more problem of possibly one of the players having a set at 3 cards and taking me out, but what I saw is that the green and blue players had their biggest armies blocked, so I saw that there would have been only 2 dangerous players, pink and white. So all in all I consider I came up with the best possible decision which would guarantee me the highest chances to win, and with neither pink nor white having a set at 3 cards I indeed succeeded. So I'm not sure why the black player was sarcastic and salty by saying well played and sending laughing emoji after I took him out, or at least this is how I interpreted it. But it seemed he was very dissatisfied when I was about to finally win the game with only one of the opponents being left. I took the risk, and instead of relatively highly losing I ended up winning. And with losing the last game but winning this one my rank reached 45,000. However, while the 14th game was one of my best ones, the 15th game had to be one of the worst ones. Everything seemed to go normally like in a casual progressive card game until the pink player decided crush half of my troops for a no good reason. Literally setting both of us out to be taken out next. So not having a set at 3 cards, what I did is crushed his army as well. So to increase my chances of finishing in the 5th place over the 6th one. But unfortunately the black player continued shielding his 2 troops' territory in South America, so of course I've got taken out firstly. And it was the worst game so far. But at least the players had some good laugh, including the pink player himself too. In the 16th game the blue player was about to take the green player out, but he kinda messed up setting his troops up in the way which would guarantee having 100% chances of both of the blitz rolls being successful. So by adding 2 fewer troops on his smaller army he ended up failing that blitz roll. But regardless of that he still continued crushing green, and I'm not sure whether he went on a rampage or did he actually think that he will be able to get to that green's 3 troops army, or maybe after all just to get better place. But whichever the reason was, that guaranteed me getting a 100% chances of winning, assuming I wouldn't mess something up, and I didn't. I ended up winning by taking all of the players out in a single turn. And with losing the last game but winning this one, my rank reached 42,000. In the 17th game I made a really big accidental oopsie which cost me the game. I was about to crush these 8 troops I split on Ukraine to crush into the white player's army, but instead of pressing on the territory of Afghanistan, I ended up pressing Middle East, and that army was crushed into the black player. I could have still taken the white player out, but the luck didn't favor me at all. The white player was taken out by yellow. Then the yellow player crushed the black player by a bit. The black player's turn came and he was lucky enough to trade in a set at 3 cards, so he went to take me out, but he was way too slow on capturing the territories, so I started sending a bunch of oopsies so he wouldn't give away the game to the yellow player. And fortunately enough he understood my message. I was unlucky to not have a set at 3 cards, but the yellow player was even more unlucky to not have a set at 4 cards. But then I didn't have a set at 4 cards either. So he traded in a set at 5 cards and took me out. I was trying to potentially change his mind by sending a lot of oopsies, so he would potentially think that he might run out of time and stop capturing my territories. But that didn't work out on him, so I ended up finishing in the 3rd place. In the 18th game I finished in the 2nd place. With the green player being so much stronger I didn't have any chances against him at the endgame at all, and then I didn't even have a set at 4 cards. But after both of those losses my rank went up to 35,000. In the 19th game the black player gave a very easy win by crushing his traded-in troops to the blue player and before that capturing a bunch of his territories. So after all of that it couldn't have been easier for me to win. Since I wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn, I used the 4 continents endgame strategy against him. He managed to break through it, but with me trading in a set he had no chances to win this game at all. And after 19th game I finally achieved the master rank. It took quite a bunch of games, but I might still be able to beat my 6-player progressive cards on classic risk map record, which is 30 games in case the upcoming games go well for me. And with reaching the master rank I started setting it as a minimum rank when hosting the games. And the 20th game, or the first game with all of the players being masters or above, didn't go well for me. I was the 6th player, and with 4 of the players being at 4 cards when the set values became relatively high, I knew that almost certainly I would be taken out if I do nothing. So I decided to take the risk and take the black player out. But differently than the last time when my opponents were at 3 cards, this time they were at 4 cards, meaning that even if I take the black player out, someone will still trade in a set and take me out. So it didn't really help me much. But instead of possibly getting taken out first in a 6-player situation, now I would possibly get taken out first in a 5-player situation, assuming someone would go taking me out. And that's right, I've got taken out by the blue player. I would say it would have been much more suitable to take the pink player out before me, but I mean it was his decision which player to take out firstly, All in all, I would say that my decision to take the black player out neither worsened nor improved my position. So it just was quite a bit of risk for a slightly better position. So in that turn I think it might have been the best to skip the card staying at 3 cards. Or in overall, by seeing the upcoming situation, I think it would have been the smartest for me, one turn before, to just start 2-carding, sit at 2 cards and stop getting any cards at all. I would not necessarily gotten any good opportunity, but at least I would have placed higher than in the 5th place. In the 21st game I took the orange player out for 4 cards, and the pink player out for 5 cards, being able to trade in sets in the same turn. However, there weren't enough troops for the white player, he was just way too strong. So with being at 4 cards he traded in a set and obviously took me out firstly over the black player because I was at 5 cards while the black player was at 2. So I don't know, all in all it might have been the best idea to start 1-carding after trading in a set instead of taking the pink and orange players out. In that case I might have ended up finishing in the 2nd place, but who knows. In the 22nd game the green player was about to take white player out, but he forgot about the white player's 3 troops territory in Europe. Then it was the white player's turn, but he didn't have a set at 3 cards. So he could have been taken out by the black player, but the black player didn't have the best accessibility ever, and with putting newly troops next to the white player's army, he ended up failing that blitz rule. I think it might have been better for him to add those troops on his Venezuela's army in South America, but I'm not totally sure. But anyway, with the black player failing, the opportunity came to me. And with trading in a set obviously I was able to take him out, then I took out the black player, then the green player out himself, and finally at the end the blue player. 2 of my beaten players were Grandmasters, so I was really happy about my upcoming rank boost. In 23rd game the white player traded in a set at 3 cards and took the yellow player out for 4 cards, ending up not being able to trade in a set in the same turn. My turn came and firstly I took the green player out because of the suitability and because of him having fewer troops than white, so I wouldn't risk of possibly failing. And after that I took the white player out himself with all of his 5 cards as well. So the only 2 of my opponents left were blue and black. None of them had enough troops to take me out though, and both of them were at 1 card each. So I was about to win, so unless they would suicide on me. So this is why I put my traded in troops in Siam instead of North Africa or so. I had a bad experience in my previous games, so I didn't want to risk it by putting my army next to any of their big armies. The black player captured a few of my territories without unleashing my army. And the blue player unleashed my army by capturing the territories, but at the end he crushed his army into me. But yeah, I took the blue player out, and I wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn, but I had all of the map captured, so the black player wouldn't have taken me out even if having more troops than me. So the next turn after trading in a set I finished him off, winning the game. In the 24th game I've got the worst luck ever by not having a set at 4 cards. So by not having it, my plan was to capture as many territories as possible, but the black player just had to take over North America before my turn, properly guarding both of the top borders. So I wasn't able to capture that many territories. The green player's turn came and he went taking the pink player out. And then, despite not taking me out, he wiped me out from Africa, so the black player would just be sure of successfully taking me out. And yes, he did. So the black player ended up being 1 card ahead of the green player, so by trading in a set before green, he won the game. In the 25th game the white player took the blue player out, but it was the only player he took out. Well, taking a quick look, it seems he wasn't that really suitable to take another player out, it seems. So when my turn came I traded in a set and played like professional, taking all of the remaining opponents in a single turn out, without leaving any hopes for the white player, at the same time taking him out as well. I ended up reaching top 13,000. In the 26th game, seeing the opportunity, I took all of the opponents out in a single turn once again. starting with blue, then yellow, the white player, then the pink player, and finally the green player. I wiped out all of the 5 opponents in a single turn, winning the game easily. In the 27th game, with the white player becoming so much stronger than anybody else, I just had to start one carding. The pink player was at 3 cards, so I couldn't really take him out, as I wouldn't have been able to trade in a set in the same turn. However, the black player, being at 2 cards, decided to go for pink himself. But then the white player got lucky to trade in a set at 3 cards, so he eliminated the black player out. With the white player blocking one of his armies in Eastern Australia, I still tried my best by capturing all of the continents besides Australia, leaving my biggest army on Siam, so in case with the white player not having a set at 4 cards, I would receive a bunch of troops which would be enough to take him out. But of course he had a set at 4 cards, so I ended finishing in second. And actually not only it, but finishing above 2 Grandmasters once again. The 28th game went very luckily as well. The yellow player trading in a set at 3 cards took the blue player out when not being able to trade in a set in the same turn. And then the black player took the pink player out, being able to trade in a set in the same turn but not having enough troops to additionally take someone else out as well. My turn came, and having a set at 3 cards, I saw that I might able to take 2 players at once out. However, when getting to the white player, I saw that my army is left with 39 troops while the white player had 44 troops in total. But then I still decided to play quite risky and try taking the white player out. I knew that as an attacker I was supposed to get favored blitz rolls. But still, it was a very big risk for sure. But at the end I ended up succeeding. The luck was really on my side that game. So then, with not being able to trade in a set, I captured as many black players' territories as possible without unleashing his biggest army. And then he didn't even have a set at 4 cards, so I easily won. And after 28 games I reached top 7,000. And I knew that around that time around 5,000 people had the Grandmaster rank. So that still gave me some hopes to beat or at least tie my 6-player progressive 30 games record. However, in the 29th game I've got unlucky to not have a set at 4 cards. So what I tried is capturing as many territories as possible. However, that didn't work out. The blue player took me out. So I ended up finishing in the 5th place, which brought me down to top 9,000. And then came the 30th game, which was the worst of them all. The first thing is that one of the players in the lobby left like half a second before I pressed the start button, so it actually ended up being 5-player instead of 6-player game. And then what happened is that the green player, for a no good reason, decided to crush my 5 European troops, with not only another army of mine being in Europe but also the orange player having a lot of troops in it too. So if green was desperate to go for a continent, then I do not understand why he didn't go for South America instead. So anyway, with the green player weakening me, I decided to just simply one card and build a big army on the territory of Great Britain. The green player wasn't going for Europe anymore or even leaving his army in it, but then he decided to go for Europe once again by fortifying his troops next to my army. So by seeing how desperate the green player was in the beginning of the game, I decided to crush his troops by myself rather than wait till he crushes mine once again. But honestly, I should have moved my army out to North America and start 2-carding instead of crushing the green player's army or waiting till he crushes my troops by himself. And then it would have been a greater idea to start putting my troops in one big army in somewhere else, but not in the continent the green player was desperate to capture. That's probably not a surprise that I finished in the last place. I was hoping to either trade in a set at 3 or 4 cards to either start 0 or 1 carding, but the orange player took me out before I even had the opportunity to do so. In the 31st game I saw that if I just do nothing getting the 3rd card, then most likely I will be taken out first, or if lucky enough maybe after white. So I decided to make a very risky decision to try taking the pink player out. My army contained a bit fewer troops, but as an attacker I knew that I'm supposed to get the advantage, so I decided to test out my luck once again. And I ended up with 6 troops next to the pink player's 8 troops army with 2 additional territories. However, I didn't get lost and quickly switched to manual rolls, and after getting 2 in a row successful 3 versus 2 manual rolls I switched to balanced blitz once again and finished taking the pink player out. Then I captured as many territories as possible, putting my army next to the white player because I was looking forward to take him out in the next turn. But then he blitzed my biggest army and the green player took me out. So I ended up finishing in the 4th place. In the 32nd game the unfortunate things didn't stop happening. I ended up in a 3-player situation with the black and green players, which I would have won if I had had a set at 4 cards, but I didn't. So knowing the attacker's advantage I wanted to possibly try my luck out once again by potentially trying to take the black player out. But when capturing her 1-troop territories I was losing quite a bunch of troops. And when getting to her biggest army I saw that the success chance was only 42%, which I would have still taken if she hadn't had any other troops left, or at least not any armies left. But besides 5 extra 1-troop territories the black player had an additional 11 troops army. So I just moved out back. The green player's armies weren't placed in an efficient way, meaning that he could only use one of his armies to get to my 92 troops army, and then that army would even be smaller, so probably because of that he didn't take risk. And then most surprisingly the black player didn't have a set at 4 cards either like me, and then the most importantly she didn't take risk to try taking me out. So I took her out by myself for 5 cards and ended up in the endgame with green. And then after a lot of fighting in the endgame with the green player I unfortunately ended up losing. Well, actually not, I actually ended up winning. But after those losses I was still quite down the rank-wise, being at top 10,000. In the 33rd game the green player thought that it would be a great idea to try taking Australia from me, very successfully for him, enough to get a very good blitz roll, but then not capturing it anyway. And then in another turn not capturing it anyway. So probably not surprised that after weakening himself and being at 5 cards he got taken out first. And when it comes to me after the green player crushing my Australian troops I had nothing better to do but just to start 1-carding. So at least I wouldn't be so miserably taken out like him. Everything ended up with the pink and white players endgame. The pink player not being able to finish the white player off still continued crushing him, so there an opportunity came to me to make a comeback, which I gladly took. The white player had 3 cards, so I wasn't able to trade in a set in the same turn, but with the pink player not having a set at 3 cards it gave me quite good chances to win. And this is what happened. After trading in a set I wiped the pink player out, ending up winning the game after just being in a completely losing situation. In the 34th game the black player for a no good reason took down an army of the white player's troops. So that was straightly my turn and I took both of them out. And then trading 2 sets at once I took the pink player out. Then the blue player. And finally the green player. And this is why you shouldn't crush a bunch of other players' troops if you're not taking him out, as it could completely give away the game to whichever lucky player whose turn next. And with this win I ended up getting to the top 6,000. In the 35th game I just had to start 1-carding once again by seeing that I would just be taken out next if I continue getting cards. And then with the white player taking the green player out. The white player took me out next. So I ended up finishing in the 3rd place. And to be honest I'm not really sure what was between the white and black players. But anyway, that 3rd place ended up boosting my rank for a little bit, so that was still good. In the 36th game the yellow player after trading in a set took out the green player when not being able to trade in a set in the same turn. Then the blue player for some reasons weakened the yellow player. So after trading in a set I took out the yellow player for 5 cards. and then I could have definitely taken the white player out for sure. But when I'm not sure what happened, my mind wasn't concentrated on him at all. I was looking to the black and blue players, while the white player ended up being out of my mind at all. So by seeing that it's unlikely to take the black player out, and that it might be risky to try taking blue out, I ended up just ended my turn. And only when I noticed what I missed such a good opportunity to take the white player which would have won me the game. So because of that the white player survived and ended up taking the black and blue players out while I finished in the second place. So that was a bit unfortunate. But I was still getting closer and closer towards the Grandmaster rank. In the 37th game the white player tried taking out the blue player but he ended up failing. The blue player traded in a set but he was still very weak in general. So after trading in a set I took him out and then the white player himself as well. Then the black player attacked a bunch of my territories, and the pink player after trading in a set crushed his army into me. But despite all of that, after trading in a set, I was still able to take the black player out. And then after trading in a set I took out the pink player as well. And that was finally it. I ended up reaching the Grandmaster rank in 37 games. I could have done definitely better, but I think that was still a good run to remind myself progressive cards.